I picked one author from each of the Road to Science Fiction novels, or anthologies, I guess? You know. From each of the anthologies, each of the volumes. So for volume 1, we have Mary Shelley, because you have to start with a woman author, that's just how it is. She basically gave birth to sci-fi as it was, so... Alright, so we have Mary Shelley, we have George R.R. Martin, H.P. Lovecraft, and Kurt Vonnegut, all in a house together. So, this sounds like a really bad joke that's about to start. Mary Shelley reading in bed. This doesn't surprise me because she was very much a bookworm. We've got. You guys! I I could just end the project right here. Nothing more needs to be said. This is so perfect. I might cry. This is so perfect. It was on a dreary night of November that I beheld the accomplishment of my toils. With an anxiety that almost amounted to agony, I collected the instruments of life around me, that I might infuse a spark of being into the lifeless thing that lay at my feet. It was already 1 in the morning. The rain pattered dismally against the panes, and my candle was nearly burnt out, when, by the glimmer of the half-extinguished light— Where are you going, H.P. Lovecraft? He's picked a different window already! Alright. What, guys? Oh, are you gonna go pick a window now? Are you switching windows again? What? 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 What is this? What is this? I might not even have to read the short stories because there's just, what is this? Now he wants to go talk to George R.R. Martin. And George R.R. Martin is thinking about H.P. Lovecraft. This may turn into fan fiction. Mary Shelley's on the move. Let me guess, she's gonna pick a window. Oh, no, they're all just gonna converse. Now I remember why I had this quiet. Oh, now they're going back to the windows. I'm gonna put this at like 10. Okay. Now they're going back to the windows. Alright. Nope, here we go. Kurt Vonnegut is back to reading. HP and George R.R. Martin keep switching windows, and Mary Shelley's on the computer. I'm okay with this. This is chill. Why are you switching windows? Just pick one. So I think what we've learned so far is that Mary Shelley, the author of Frankenstein, would have decided to spend all of her time on the computer if she had been born in the right era. I appreciate this. I appreciate this. And George R.R. Martin's still just staring out a window. Yeah. So we started out with everybody reading, and then everybody looking out of windows, and then Mary Shelley on the computer, and now everybody besides Mary is back to reading. George R.R. Martin, get out of the way. If you're angry about needing to sleep, go to sleep. H.P. Lovecraft, please don't wet yourself. I had forgotten how much playing Sims is like watching a bunch of toddlers do things. And so now I've got 4 of the greatest sci-fi authors ever as Sims, but it's like watching them as toddlers. It's so weird. Alright, George R.R. Martin is going to bed, and apparently so is Kurt Vonnegut. Is everyone going to bed? Everybody except for H.P. Lovecraft. And, oh, Mary Shelley's finally eating. There we go. Everybody's finally eating. It's all good. Oh, and now H.P. Lovecraft is gonna go stare out a window.
Why is he gonna go stay? What? Dude, there's a bed right there. Don't be angry. Okay, okay. So, we've got Kurt Vonnegut, who is now grumpy because George R.R. Martin took the bed that he was going to use. But it's okay because he found one of the other beds. H.P. Lovecraft seems to have taken this bed, unless H.P. Lovecraft and Mary Shelley are going to try and use the same bed, at which point Mary Shelley's going to be annoyed because there's not space for her on that side of the bed. Well, are you both just going to, like, what are you doing? Oh, here we go. Okay, because they're sitting there playing cat and mouse around the bed. H.P. Lovecraft is mad because Mary Shelley took his bed. Honey, no, there's another bed upstairs. Like, we just need to go up a floor. Hang on. Let me... Bloop. Yeah, see? There's an entire apartment up here. I don't know what you're complaining about. There we go. So apparently everybody's going to bed, which means we're going to fast forward, because... No, no. Mary Shelley and H.P. Lovecraft argued over the bed for a bit, but Mary Shelley won. That's that's the short version. Um, alright, so now everybody's asleep. Here comes the fun part where it's going to be Monday, and so we're going to see if any of them decide to get jobs. Like, I don't have it set for any of them to have to get a job, but I have it set so they can get a job if they so choose. I have this vague feeling that we're just going to spend 4 days game time, maybe 5, watching the. Oh, what's going on? What's going on? Did somebody wake up? Ah, Mary Shelley is awake. Yeah, Mary Shelley is the first one up. Are you an insomniac? What's going on? Oh, apparently she's gonna. Mary Shelley might actually be the one to get a job. They still left the music on though. What you doing? Oh, rereading a book. All right. Why is the music still on? They continue to leave the music running. Kurt and HP don't pick up way plate. Apparently everyone is sloppy. Except for Mary Shelley, who has so far made her bed, picked up all her plates, etc. What's the plan? Nope, nope, everybody's leaving their plates out. Oh, there we go. George R.R. Martin picking up the slack here. I should start like a tally of who's picked up their plates and who hasn't. So far, Vonnegut and Lovecraft have not made their beds. Vonnegut has left plates out. Lovecraft hasn't cleaned up after cooking. Mary and George R.R. Martin seem to be doing okay at cleaning up. Why? Except for George R.R. Martin is angry at the sink. George R.R. Martin is now mad at that window. It's the same window that HP was mad at. I think we're on to something here. The year was 2081, and everyone was finally equal. They weren't only equal before God and the law, they were equal every which way. Nobody was smarter than anybody else. Nobody was better looking than anybody else. Nobody was stronger or quicker than anybody else. All this equality was due to the 211th, 212th, and 213th Amendments to the Constitution, and to the unceasing vigilance of agents of the United States Handicapper General. Some things about living still weren't quite right, though. April, for instance, still drove people crazy by not being springtime. And it was in that clammy month that the H.G. men took George and Hazel Bergeron's 14-year-old son Harrison away. It was tragic, all right, but George and Hazel couldn't think about it very hard. Hazel had a perfectly average intelligence, which meant she couldn't think about anything except in short bursts. And George, while his intelligence was way above normal, had a little mental handicap radio in his ear. He was required by law to wear it at all times. It was turned to a government transmitter. Every 20 seconds or so, the transmitter would send out some sharp noise to keep people like George from taking unfair advantage of their brains. George and Hazel were watching television. There were tears on Hazel's cheeks, which she'd forgotten for the moment what they were about. On the television screen were ballerinas. A buzzer sounded in George's head. His thoughts fled in a panic, like bandits from a burglar alarm. "That was a really pretty dance they just did," said Hazel. "Huh?" said George. That dance. It was nice, said Hazel. Yep, said George. He tried to think a little about the ballerinas. They weren't really very good, no better than anybody else would have been anyway. They were burdened with sash weights and bags of bird shots, and their faces were masked so that no one, seeing a free and graceful gesture or a pretty face, would feel like something the cat drug in. George was toying with the vague notion that maybe dancers shouldn't be handicapped. But he didn't get very far with it before another noise in his ear radio scattered his thoughts. George winced. So did 2 out of the 8 ballerinas. Hazel saw him wince. Having no mental handicap herself, she had to ask George what the latest sound had been. Sounded like somebody hitting a milk bottle with a ball-peen hammer, said George. I think it'd be real interesting hearing all the different sounds, said Hazel, a little envious. All the things they think up. Said George. Only, if I was a handicapper general, you know what I would do? Said Hazel. Hazel, as a matter of fact, bore a strong resemblance to the handicapper general, a woman named Diana Moonglampers. If I was Diana Moonglampers, said Hazel, I'd have chimes on Sunday. Just chimes. Kind of in honor of religion. I could think if it was just chimes, said George. Well, maybe make 'em real loud, said Hazel. I think I'd make a good handicapper general. Good as anybody else, said George. Who knows better than I do what normal is, said Hazel. Right, said George. He began to think glimmeringly about his abnormal son, who was now in jail, about Harrison, but a 21-gun salute in his head stopped that. Now what are we all doing? Everybody's disappeared. Are they all upstairs? No, there's only 2 people upstairs. No, there's 3. H.P. Lovecraft, Kurt Vonnegut, George R.R. Martin. Where's Mary Shelley? Oh, there's a full moon. And it's foreboding. Where's Mary Shelley? Where's Mary Shelley? Wait. Breaking wind. Okay, Mary Shelley is reading. I thought I had lost track of her. Boy, said Hazel, that was a doozy, wasn't it? It was such a doozy that George was white and trembling, and tears stood on the rims of his red eyes. 2 of the 8 ballerinas had collapsed to the studio floor and were holding their temples. All of a sudden you look so tired, said Hazel. Why don't you stretch out on the sofa so you can rest your handicap bag on the pillows, honey bunch? She was referring to the 47 pounds of birdshot in a canvas bag, which was padlocked around George's neck. Go on and rest the bag for a little while, she said. I don't care if you're not equal to me for a while. George weighed the bag with his hands. I don't mind it, he said. I don't notice it anymore. It's just kind of part of me. You've been so tired lately. Kind of wore out, said Hazel. If there was just some way we could make a little hole in the bottom of the bag, and just take out a few of them lead balls. Just a few. 2 years in prison and $2,000 fine for every ball I took out, said George. I don't call that a bargain. If you could just take a few out when you came from work, said Hazel. I mean, you don't compete with anybody around here. You just sit around. If I tried to get away with it, said George, then other people would get away with it, and pretty soon we'd be right back to the Dark Ages again, with everybody competing against everybody else. You wouldn't like that, would you? I'd hate it, said Hazel. There you are, said George. The minute people start cheating on laws, what do you think happens to society? If Hazel hadn't been able to come up with an answer to this question, George couldn't have supplied one. A siren was going off in his head. Reckon it'd fall apart, said Hazel. What would? Said George blankly. Society, said Hazel uncertainly. Wasn't that what you just said? Who knows, said George. The television program was suddenly interrupted for a news bulletin. It wasn't clear at first as to what the bulletin was about, since the announcer, like all announcers, had a serious speech impediment. For about half a minute, and in a state of high excitement, the announcer tried to say, "Ladies and gentlemen." He finally gave up, handed the bulletin to a ballerina to read. That's all right, Hazel said of the announcer. He tried. That's the big thing. He tried to do the best he could with what God gave him. He should get a nice raise for trying so hard. Ladies and gentlemen, said the ballerina, reading the bulletin. She must have been extraordinarily beautiful, because the mask she wore was hideous, and it was easy to see that she was the strongest and most graceful of all the dancers. Her handicap bigs were as big as those worn by 200-pound men. And she had to apologize at once for her voice, which was a very unfair voice for a woman to use. Her voice was warm, luminous, timeless melody. Excuse me, she said, and she began again, making her voice absolutely uncompetitive. Harrison Bergeron, age 14, she said in a grackle squawk, has just escaped from jail, where he was held on suspicion of plotting to overthrow the government. He is a genius and an athlete, is under-handicapped and should be regarded as extremely dangerous." A police photograph of Harrison Bergeron was flashed on the screen upside down, then sideways, upside down again, then right side up. The picture showed the full length of Harrison against a background calibrated in feet and inches. He was exactly 7 feet tall. The rest of Harrison's appearance was Halloween in hardware. Nobody had ever borne heavier handicaps. He had outgrown hindrances faster than the HG men could think them up. Instead of a little ear radio for a mental handicap, he wore a tremendous pair of earphones, and spectacles with thick wavy lenses. The spectacles were intended to make him not only half blind, but give him a wanging headache besides. This isn't fanfic. This isn't fanfic. This is actually by Kurt Vonnegut. Scrap metal was hung all over him. Ordinarily, there was a certain symmetry, a military neatness to the handicaps issued to strong people, but Harrison looked like a walking junkyard. In the race of life, Harrison carried 300 pounds. And to offset his good looks, the HG men required that he wear at all times a red rubber ball for a nose, keep his eyebrows shaved off, and cover even his even white teeth with black caps at a snaggletooth random. "If you see this boy," said the ballerina, "do not, I repeat, do not try to reason with him." There was a shriek of a door being torn from his hinges. Screams and barking cries of consternation came from the television set. The photograph of Harrison Bergeron on the screen jumped again and again, as though dancing to the tune of an earthquake. George Bergeron correctly identified the earthquake. As well he might have, for many a time was his own home had danced to the same crashing tune. "My God," said George, "that must be Harrison." The realization was blasted from his mind instantly by the sound of an automobile collision in his head. When George could open his eyes again, the photograph of Harrison was gone. A living, breathing Harrison filled the screen. Is everybody sleeping? No? What are you doing? What are you all doing? There are zombies. There are zombies. Why are there zombies? Okay. Kurt Vonnegut, still awake. Zombies. There are zombies. Where's everybody else? Kurt Vonnegut in the computer room. Mary Shelley's in the kitchen. There are zombies. There's H.P. Lovecraft. Where's George R.R. Martin? Oh, there he is. He's getting ready for bed. Alright, that is everyone. Alright. I got really worried about the zombies. Alright. Clanking, clownish, and huge, Harrison stood in the center of the studio. The knob of the uprooted studio door was still in his hand. Ballerinas, technicians, musicians, and announcers cowered on their knees before him, expecting to die. "I am the Emperor!" cried Harrison. "Do you hear? I am the Emperor! Everyone must do as I say at once!" He stamped his foot and the studio shook. "Even as I stand here," he bellowed, "crippled, hobbled, sickened, I am a greater ruler than any man who ever lived. Now watch me become what I can become!" Harrison tore the straps of his handicap harness like wet tissue paper. Tore straps guaranteed to support 5,000 pounds. Harrison's scrap iron handicaps crashed to the floor. Harrison thrust his thumbs under the bar of the padlock that secured his head harness. The bar snapped like celery. Harrison smashed his headphones and spectacles against the wall. He flung away his rubber nose, revealed a man that would have awed Thor, the god of thunder. I shall now select my empress," he said, looking down on the cowering people. "Let the first woman who dares rise to her feet claim her mate and her throne." A moment passed, and then a ballerina arose, swaying like a willow. Harrison plucked the metal handicap from her ear, mapped off her physical handicaps with marvelous delicacy. Last off, he removed her mask. She was blindingly beautiful. "Now," said Harrison, taking her hand, "shall we show the people the meaning of the word dance? Music!" he commanded. The musicians scrambled back into their chairs, and Harrison stripped them of their handicaps too. "Play your best," he told them, "and I'll make you barons and dukes and earls." The music began. It was normal at first, cheap, silly, false. But Harrison snatched two musicians from the chairs, waved them like batons as he sang the music as he wanted it played. He slammed them back into their chairs. The music began again, and was much improved. Harrison and his empress merely listened to the music for a while, listening gravely, as though synchronizing their heartbeats with it. They shifted their weights to their toes. Harrison placed his big hands on the girl's tiny waist, letting her sense the weightlessness that would soon be hers. And then, in an explosion of joy and grace, into the air they sprang. Not only were the laws of the land abandoned, but the law of gravity and the laws of motion as well. They reeled, whirled, swiveled, flounced, capered, gamboled, and spun. They leaped like deer on the moon. The studio's ceiling was 30 feet high, but each leap brought the dancers nearer to it. It became their obvious intention to kiss the ceiling. They kissed it. And then, neutralizing gravity with love and pure will, they remained suspended in the air, inches below the ceiling, and kissed each other for a long, long time. It was then that Diana Moon Glampers, the handicapper general, came into the studio with a double-barreled 10-gauge shotgun. She fired twice, and the Emperor and Empress were dead before they hit the floor. Diana Moon Glampers loaded the gun again. She aimed it at the musicians, and told them they had 10 seconds to get their handicaps back on. It was then that the Bergerons' television tube burned out. Hazel turned to comment about the blackout to George, but George had gone out into the kitchen for a can of beer. George came back in with the beer, paused while a handicapped signal shook him up, and then he sat down again. "You been crying?" he said to Hazel. "Yep," she said. "What about?" he said. "I forgot," she said. "Something real sad on television." "What was it?" he said. "It's all kind of mixed up in my mind," said Hazel. "Forget sad things," said George. "I always do," said Hazel. "That's my girl," said George. He winced. There was the sound of a riveting gun in his head. "Gee, I could tell that was a doozy," said Hazel. "You can say that again," said George. "Gee," said Hazel. "I could tell that one was a doozy." Okay, so the first time I read that was in middle school. What is Mary Shelley doing? What are you doing? You're just standing there in the middle of the night. I think Mary Shelley has something in common with the zombies, holy cow. Speaking of, what are the zombies doing on my back porch? It's just very odd. It's very odd. Who are you? Oh, there's a zombie attack. Dude, you're in the bathroom. They're outside. You're good. 1, 2, 3. Alright, so she must have been sleeping upstairs, but why didn't she use the upstairs bathroom? Now she's gonna get on the computer. 4:30 in the morning. Mary Shelley is an odd one. More importantly, why are there zombies to begin with? That is a good question. I do have the supernatural expansion. I wasn't really expecting it to affect much, but there are zombies. There are zombies. And they're arguing with each other on my back porch. Some things you just can't plan for. I've played this exact same copy multiple times. I've never had zombies show up. I blame HP. HP and Mary Shelley both. I blame them both. What? Oh, he's worried about the zombies too. It's like 5 in the morning. Oh, hey, what are you doing? There's another zombie. And he's on the front porch. I guess everybody's getting up to look at the zombies on the front porch. Nope, we're all going back to bed. No, we're not. Do zombies argue about decomposing sheep? That was beautiful. Alright, looks like everybody's going back to bed despite the fact that zombies are attacking. They just don't care. Except for George, who needs a snack. And is angry about it. Nope, 6 a.m. Everybody's awake. And now the zombies are regular people and are walking away! literally thinking about. Consider the hollowness of life? You guys can't see this, it's behind my head. I'm gonna just hang on. You need to consider the frigging hollowness of life sitting in the middle of the driveway. I, I, this experiment is going so much. A fire has started. A fire has started on my home lot. We should probably go put that out. Mary Shelley, did you just start a fire? I think Mary Shelley just started a fire. Oh, George R.R. Martin. George R.R. Martin started the fire. They had to save their precious envelope collections. And now they're all going back to reading. Be careful not to start fires in your house. And now the fireman's just chilling out in my house. And George R.R. Martin is telling jokes to the window. And the fireman is having lunch! Whoop, now he disappeared. The fireman has disappeared. Mary Shelley, keeping the household together. Oh, H.P. Lovecraft, getting better at cooking. Still doesn't have a job. It's Wednesday. None of them have jobs. It is Wednesday. Mary Shelley is angry about something. Now she's gonna sleep until 7 p.m. and then get up and do things. The fireman friggin' despawned! H.P. Lovecraft, sitting on the driveway, contemplating the hollowness of life, and then our George R.R. Martin starts a fire. This is it. This meta is what's gonna make me contemplate the hollowness of life, just like H.P. Lovecraft. I don't even know. H.P. Lovecraft is making me contemplate the hollowness of life via a Sims character. Alright, let's buy a friggin' coffin. I don't know where we're gonna put it, but we're gonna buy a coffin. Because everybody else is asleep, and half of them are dreaming about fire. Why are you dreaming about fire and then the house? And why are you dreaming about matches and then the house? You guys, this is why Mary Shelley didn't sleep yesterday. Now what are you doing? She's gonna go. She's gonna go check out the coffin. And now she's gonna go play on the computer. I'm gonna stand here and look at this random coffin that just showed up. I think I may have gone too far with this what if. I think I may have gone too far. I just don't even know. The spread of this surrealism is not something I could have anticipated, honestly. I don't know. I don't even know. This is admittedly exceptionally. Why are Kurt Vonnegut following George R.R. Martin into the bathroom? Kurt Vonnegut just followed George R.R. Martin into the bathroom. I have so little of an idea of what's going on here. I just. Okay. Okay, Kurt Vonnegut is following George R.R. Martin around again. He was in the shower and George R.R. Martin decided to walk in and have a conversation with him. Sci-fi authors in a house together in The Sims, and I had been reading excerpts from their short stories from the anthologies that I had for my sci-fi class. And then there were zombies, and now the zombies are real. And life has become speculative fiction, and this is extremely surreal. I just don't even know. I just don't even know. All right. So to finish up, we've got George R.R. Martin throwing out one newspaper, H.P. Lovecraft staring out a window. Um, Mary Shelley, where is Mary Shelley? Oh, Mary Shelley is asleep at 1 in the afternoon, and Kurt Vonnegut is watching TV after taking a bath. And that's what I've got for you. So far this stream, we have had everyone reading, HP and H.P. Lovecraft and George R.R. Martin taking turns looking out the windows, everyone arguing over beds for the first couple nights, everyone waking up at 6 in the morning to read, window staring and reading, more of the above. They're both mad at the same window. Zombies. Zombies show up in the game. The question, do zombies dream of decomposing sheep, is posed. Very important. And H.P. Lovecraft spends way too much time considering the hollowness of life on the floor. Just, yep, yep. And that's what I've got. So, I'm just gonna save and quit, and that's what I've got for this.